One day, the hunters launched a massive assault against various dangerous monsters roaming an island. These monsters could not be attacked with ordinary weapons. Because of this, the military was powerless and left everything to the hunters. Although hunters were stronger than ordinary humans, their abilities varied. This caused lower-ranked hunters to rely on higher-ranked hunters. Several years before this assault, a gate connecting to another dimension appeared. At the same time, people awakened a power that allowed them to fight against the monsters within the gate. These people were then called hunters. To measure their strength, hunters were divided into several ranks. However, no matter how hard they tried after awakening, they could no longer grow stronger. A person named Jinwoo was one of the E-rank hunters, the weakest among them. He was only allowed to enter gates deemed not too dangerous, but because he frequently suffered severe injuries, people recognized him as the weakest hunter. Upon entering a D-rank gate, a girl named Juhee, who took her role as a healer seriously, advised him against joining because Jinwoo was already injured. Despite this, Jinwoo still participated in the raid, even though the risks outweighed the rewards. A man named Song led the raid this time. After getting acquainted, they entered the gate to exterminate monsters and collect resources. During the battle, Jinwoo's weapon suddenly broke, and he was stabbed multiple times. Juhee, who was nearby, struggled to heal his arms and legs while the others continued fighting until all the monsters were defeated. Although the operation was successful, the earnings were unsatisfactory. Therefore, when someone discovered a hidden passage, some of them wanted to explore it. A few hunters hesitated, but they proceeded because most members, including Jinwoo, had agreed. Elsewhere, Guild was conducting recruitments, offering various contracts to promising hunters. At the same time, a theft occurred, and an S-rank hunter swiftly stopped it in an elegant manner. When Jinwoo agreed to explore the hidden path, Juhee was furious at him. However, because Jinwoo apologized and seemed remorseful, Juhee said she would forgive him if he treated her to a meal. Shortly after, they arrived at the boss room. Inside, they found nothing but armed statues. When they inspected the ancient writings in the room, the entrance suddenly closed. Additionally, one by one, the statues started moving and attacked anyone who tried to escape. After experiencing multiple terrifying moments, Jinwoo noticed the pattern in the statues' attacks. He quickly warned the others to bow down so that most of them could survive. Based on his observations, Song speculated that the statue might be an A-rank or even an S-rank entity. It could kill them instantly if anyone made a mistake. The ancient writing Song had seen contained 3 commands. They were ordered to respect, praise, and offer a sacrifice. After hearing this, Jinwoo understood the first command. He told everyone to bow their heads in reverence. When they did, the statue's expression changed, and it ceased attacking, though it remained active because the next command was yet to be fulfilled. At that moment, the statue suddenly awakened and approached them as if waiting to be praised. One of the hunters attempted to praise it, but the statue continued moving and ultimately crushed him. Upon witnessing this, the hunters ran in all directions as the other statues also began attacking. Jinwoo realized they needed to take shelter near the statues holding musical instruments. However, since he approached the wrong statue, Jinwoo was struck and nearly killed by the god statue. Once the second command was fulfilled, all statues returned to their original positions. But the prior attack had left Jinwoo injured and caused him to lose his ankle. Shortly after, an altar suddenly appeared in the center of the room, indicating that one of them needed to be sacrificed as a leader. Song admitted that he had made the wrong decision. Therefore, he decided to take responsibility and sacrifice himself. However, when he stepped onto the altar, nothing happened. To understand why, Jinwoo asked others to bring him closer to the altar. Soon, flames ignited according to the number of people in the circle. However, Jinwoo was still uncertain about what this meant. One thing was clear: they could not stay there too long, as it could cause the gate to collapse and release the monsters into the outside world. Elsewhere, Jinwoo's younger sister, Jina, visited their mother, who was receiving treatment. She kept her mother company cheerfully despite her mother's condition remaining unchanged. Meanwhile, inside the dungeon, the hunters had to keep their eyes on the statue to prevent it from approaching. However, as the exit doors started opening one by one, they chose to flee without regard for others' safety. Ultimately, Jinwoo was left alone because he no longer had the strength to escape. Then, as all the statues attacked him, he received a notification that he had met the conditions to become a player. This granted him access to hidden missions and allowed him to continuously level up. After the horrifying incident, Jinwoo was found unconscious by a rescue team. When he woke up, all his wounds had miraculously healed. For a moment, he thought it was just a dream. Then, a union supervisor visited him to explain the situation. They told him he had been unconscious for 3 days. Only 6 people had survived the incident, and strangely, when other hunter unions came to investigate, they found only Jinwoo with no trace of the statues that had attacked him. Due to these peculiarities, it was suspected that Jinwoo had undergone a second awakening. To confirm this, they used a device that could measure his mana level. However, it turned out their assumption was wrong. Jinwoo remained an E-rank hunter with power levels barely above an ordinary human. Sometime later, Gina visited Jinwoo. Upon arriving, she asked him to take better care of himself, worried that something might happen to him again. She even considered quitting school and working so her brother could stop being a hunter. After hearing his sister's concerns, Jinwoo wanted to confirm whether she could see the information panel in front of him. Once he realized he was the only one who could see it, Jinwoo investigated further and discovered that he had an unfinished daily quest. Since he ignored it, he was forcibly transported to a penalty zone, where he had to survive for several hours against giant monsters hunting him. Because he was not in his hospital room, his nurse panicked, while he was desperately fighting for his life. Once the penalty zone timer ended, he was immediately returned to his original location. Later, a new gate appeared, and Juhee was asked to join a raid. Meanwhile, Jinwoo, rumored to have regained consciousness but still traumatized, was secretly training his physical abilities. After completing his daily quests, Jinwoo could distribute his earned stat points to enhance his abilities. He also occasionally received rewards such as items or keys to instant dungeons. He decided to use one of the keys. Before leaving, he visited his mother, who was in an eternal sleep due to her illness. Then, he used the key to enter an instant dungeon. At first, he easily defeated approaching monsters. However, as he ventured deeper, the monsters grew stronger and harder to defeat. After fighting off a goblin horde, Jinwoo faced a powerful monster named Leekin with iron fangs. He noticed his body had become lighter, and his physical strength had increased, allowing him to send enemies flying. However, raw strength alone was not enough. Remembering his inventory system, he managed to retrieve weapons and use them to slay Lycans, even making them flee in fear. After gaining levels and healing his wounds, Jinwoo continued battling and eventually confronted a giant serpent monster. Although his attacks initially proved ineffective, he ultimately crushed the beast with his bare hands. Upon exiting the dungeon, he found that most runaway monsters had already been eliminated, except for the boss. However, when Jinwoo threw his weapon, the monster was instantly defeated. While being treated in the hospital, Jinwoo constantly performed physical training to avoid the daily task penalty. This training drastically changed his physical appearance, making many nurses attracted to him, with some even approaching him to ask for his phone number. Hunter Beck was one of the 7 S-rank hunters in the country. When reporters asked about his daily activities, he said that he trained every day to prevent his intuition from deteriorating. After learning this from a TV show, Gina suspected that her brother had been undergoing physical training, as his muscle mass had started increasing and his body had grown taller. Sometime later, Jinwoo received a bill because he had not paid his monthly rent. Since he could now easily defeat goblins, he assumed he could gather money more quickly to pay for it. However, finding a suitable job seemed difficult, as he still held an E-rank status. Additionally, he did not want others to know about his strength, as it could attract attention. But after some searching, he found a great job with a large reward. He would join Dong-suk's group in exploring a C-rank dungeon. However, because of his low rank, he was not asked to hunt and was only assigned to carry supplies. Besides Jinwoo, a rookie hunter named Jinho was also recruited to complete their party. Although most of them were already C-rank, Jinwoo felt that this situation was too reckless because they did not bring a healer. Then, after signing all the contracts, they prepared to enter the gate. Once inside, they did not encounter any monsters or rocks illuminating the path. Because of this, one of them had to provide light to prevent anyone from getting lost. As they proceeded, Jinwoo sensed something approaching. It turned out to be insect-type monsters hiding above them. Dong-suk used a provocation skill to lure the monsters to one spot, while the others assisted him from behind with powerful slashing attacks. Observing them, Jinwoo thought that this might be the reason they did not need a healer. Everyone worked together very well. However, something frustrated Jinwoo. He began to wonder where the people who were usually recruited to support the party had gone. Then, upon discovering a large amount of magic stones, the group revealed their true intentions. They had trapped Jinwoo and Jinho inside the boss's lair to buy more time for mining. Dong-suk assumed that an E-rank was very weak and that an inexperienced D-rank could not possibly defeat the boss. Once the spider devoured them and went back to sleep, he planned to re-enter and transport the mana crystals. Additionally, they also targeted Jinho's equipment because of its high value. Meanwhile, in front of the boss, Jinho warned Jinwoo not to act alone. He explained that to defeat a C-rank boss, one typically needed strength equivalent to a B-rank. Although Jinwoo agreed with his statement, he, having already reached level 18, did not feel pressured when facing it. He thought there was no harm in trying to fight the boss. When Jinwoo fought, Jinho did not expect that he could move like that. Upon seeing it, he thought that Jinwoo was a fake registrant who deliberately registered as a low-ranking hunter. However, even though Jinwoo had exerted all his strength, the spider-like defense was too strong, making his attacks completely ineffective. It seemed that he needed to attack its weak point using a dagger with a special effect. However, even after attacking multiple times, the monster's defense was still impenetrable. In fact, Jinwoo himself was hit because his movements began to slow down. But thanks to his total recovery skill, he was able to rise again and successfully strike its weak point. With that, the ruler of Anjan was defeated. Not long after, Dong-suk and his party members returned to the boss's lair. At that time, they had not yet realized that Jinwoo had defeated the boss. Therefore, Dong-suk ordered Jinho to kill Jinwoo because he was not considered a threat. However, instead of following their orders, Jinho chose to side with Jinwoo. Dong-suk immediately instructed his subordinates to eliminate both of them. At the same time, Jinwoo received an emergency quest. In the quest, the system forced him to kill all his enemies. Because he was focused on the quest, Jinwoo did not have time to evade his enemy. He was struck by a powerful attack, making his enemy think he was already dead. After some time, Jinwoo made up his mind to complete the mission. Although at first, he did not want to kill anyone, considering that the place was filled with violence, Jinwoo had no other choice but to eliminate them all. As Jinwoo attacked, his enemies did not realize it at all. One by one, they continued to die with just a single slash. His movement speed had increased drastically. At this moment, he was far stronger than when he fought the boss. Even though their members were being slaughtered, Dong-suk still felt superior to him. However, after Jinwoo knocked him down, he was immediately terrified and begged for mercy. But because Dong-suk had tried to kill him 3 times, Jinwoo did not forgive him. A few days later, Manager Wu received information about the case of the hunters who perished in the previous attack. At first, he considered it an ordinary case, but after learning that the survivor came out after defeating the boss, they acknowledged that it was rather unusual, especially since one of them was Jinwoo, the hunter who survived the double dungeon incident and had earned a sufficient income. Jinwoo set aside part of his money to buy food for his sister, which made her curious because, besides receiving many gifts, her brother returned home without any injuries. However, since the experience was not worth discussing, Jinwoo let his sister think that he had been helped by a powerful hunter. While drinking alcohol, the drink did not make him intoxicated at all. Upon inspection, it turned out to be an effect of the immunity skill he had acquired from the double dungeon. After some time, Jinho called him to meet. The reason Jinho met him was to form a raid team and conduct 19 raids, all of which were required to fulfill the conditions to become the head of the company. As the son of the construction company owner, Jinho dared to offer a monetary reward of 300 billion. The amount was enormous, but since Jinwoo could continue to grow stronger, the reward became insignificant. Therefore, Jinwoo decided to refuse, no matter what his conversation partner discussed. Dongsuk's brother was one of the S-rank hunters. Upon hearing the news that his brother had died, he immediately realized that someone had killed him. Thus, he planned to take revenge on the two people who had survived. At another time, Jinwoo and his sister exercised together. After exercising beyond the limit of his daily quest, Jinwoo obtained a reward, a key to enter the demon castle. According to the explanation there was a powerful item capable of curing various diseases. Jinwoo realized that the monsters there were on par with S-rank monsters. Because of that, he felt uncertain about his current abilities, but in order to find a cure to heal his mother, he proceeded to use the key. Some time after that, Jinwoo fought a monster named Cerberus. While fighting it, every attack he launched only caused minor scratches. Additionally, the longer the battle lasted, the more ferocious the monster became. Every time the monster attacked, Jinwoo's health points dropped drastically, even reaching their lowest point. Despite this, Jinwoo continued to fight with all his strength. He utilized various items he had to withstand the enemy's attacks. Then, as the monster lunged at him, Jinwoo slashed it repeatedly until the monster was finally defeated. After defeating the monster, he obtained a key to the castle, but he chose to retreat for now as he had reached his limit. After defeating the monster in the instant dungeon, Jinwoo obtained a recipe to create an item that could cure various diseases. To craft it, he needed to find 3 other items that seemed to be located in the demon castle. Since he was not yet capable of entering it, he needed to level up further to become stronger. For that reason, he changed his mind and decided to accept Jinho's previous offer. He would participate in 19 C-rank raids, but only under the condition that it would be just the 2 of them, while the others would be hired as mercenaries, similar to what Dongsuk had done. At the same time, Cha Haein was undergoing physical training. Then, Jinho's brother tried to recruit her to join as the leader of a guild. It seemed that their father was very eager to establish a hunter guild because it was considered highly profitable. Now, Jinho had taken steps to realize their father's dream, but unlike his brother, he did not want to recruit hunters from other guilds. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was thinking about how to obtain an item equivalent to the Demon Castle key, but he had not yet had the opportunity to get one since he hadn't received a secret quest. Not long after, he received an invitation to participate in a D-rank gate raid. Besides Jinwoo, Juhee also received the invitation. Although she had not fully recovered from her trauma, she accepted the invitation and wanted to push herself a little further. Cha Haein had just been recruited by Jinho's brother. However, it seemed that she was not interested in joining and immediately reported this matter to her guild leader before the guild leader had a chance to discuss it with the director general. Because of that, Cha Haein wanted to know what had been discussed at that time. It turned out that they were discussing Jeju Island, which had long been overrun by monsters because the Korean hunters had failed to reclaim it. At this moment, they were unable to take any action. However, unlike other guilds that only sought profit, guild leader Choi aspired to conquer the island one day. Meanwhile, Jinwoo was preparing to enter a dungeon. Lately, his sister had rarely seen him get injured, leading her to believe that her brother had grown stronger due to his training. However, she was also a little worried because Jinwoo left without carrying any supplies. Additionally, it turned out that Song also joined this raid. Song and Juhee did not expect to meet him here again. Moreover, They were surprised because Jinwoo had changed drastically in just a few months. Sometime after that, the other members arrived at the gate. They were a group of convicts who had come to reduce their prison sentences. Meanwhile, to ensure their safety, they were supervised by a B-rank hunter named Kang Tae-shik. Upon entering the dungeon, the prisoners fought with extreme brutality, so ruthless that Song could not tell who the real monsters were. Additionally, he also sensed that Jinwoo had become much stronger. However, Jinwoo still displayed a humble attitude despite not yet revealing his full abilities. Then, when they reached a branching path, they decided to split up as their senses had become more sensitive. Jinwoo could tell that the boss was on the left path, so he chose to go that way to level up further. After defeating the monster, Kim stated that he would apologize to Jinwoo. Although he had done it for his family, he still felt guilty for leaving Jinwoo alone. Kang Tae-shik and the prisoners were on the right path. At that moment, Kang tried to determine whether they had any regrets for their crimes. However, the prisoners showed no remorse even after killing people. Kang decided to eliminate them, especially since the victims' parents had asked him to kill them. The path Kim took was actually connected to the prisoners' path because it was discovered that Kang were attacking the prisoners. Kang decided to attack everyone in sight to silence them. By the time Jinwoo arrived, Kang had already massacred everyone. Joo-hee tried to heal Kim, but it seemed too late because he had lost too much blood. Shortly after, Kang launched an attack on Joo-hee, but Jinwoo quickly protected her with incredible reflexes. Since it was believed that Jinwoo would not be able to defeat him, Song decided to step forward and fight Kang. He thought he had a chance to win because his opponent had low defense, but in reality it was not as easy as he had expected. Even though Joo-hee had helped him by giving a buff to increase his strength, Song became overwhelmed because he could not match his opponent's speed. Jinwoo was forced to step in. He was truly capable of keeping up with his opponent, who was a B-rank assassin. Kang Tae-shik had the ability to completely erase his presence, but it turned out that this ability was useless because Jinwoo could predict his attack directions. Moreover, since Kang attacked with full intent to kill, the system deemed him a threat and forced Jinwoo to eliminate him. Because of this, Jinwoo was able to suppress his emotions and defeat him in a calm state. After defeating him, Jinwoo proceeded to eliminate the boss and then reported the issue to the guild's supervisors. Realizing that Jinwoo had a reason to hide his strength, Song testified that he was the one who had defeated Kang and the boss. That night, Jinwoo walked with Joo-hee. Previously, they had promised to have dinner together, but it seemed they would not be able to do so because Joo-hee was planning to quit and return to her hometown. However, if Jinwoo was ever near her home, she asked him to visit her. Sometime earlier, Jinwoo had been warned to always remain cautious after Dong-suk's death. No matter what happened inside the dungeon, Dong-suk's S-rank brother might target Jinwoo. The next day, Jinho had gathered the hired hunters. They ranged from drunkards to high school teenagers. Jinwoo treated the high school student like a child because he did not accept a student joining them. However, the student insisted that he was also a hunter. Even so, Jinwoo did not make a big deal out of it because only he and Jinho would enter, while the others were instructed to wait outside but would still be paid. Since both Jinwoo and Jinho were low-ranked, their team members did not believe they could succeed. But after an hour had passed, everyone was shocked because, even though there were only 2 of them, they had managed to conquer the dungeon. After that, they immediately entered another gate. While inside, Jinwoo took down all the monsters, while Jinho focused on mining. Every day, Jinwoo cleared 3 dungeons at once, causing his skills and strength to grow immensely. Manager on Sang-min from the White Tiger Guild received a report from his subordinates about the C-rank gate purchased by Jinho, as his raid team was assembled carelessly. On Sang-min initially thought they were just playing around, but when he saw Sung-jin's name on the list, he immediately became suspicious that Jinwoo had undergone a second awakening. Then, while checking the raid team, On Sang-min saw a group of hunters lazing around. which led him to conclude that Jinwoo had entered alone without an actual raid team. After finishing the dungeon, Jinwoo suddenly remembered that he had an errand to run the next day. Because of that, he wanted to request leave and postpone the gate that had been scheduled. As the sun set, On Sang-min approached Jinwoo to recruit him while explaining that White Tiger was a top-ranking guild. On Sang-min assumed that Jinwoo would be interested in joining. In addition, they were also willing to offer twice the amount Jinho was paying him. Before making a decision, Jinwoo asked how much the White Tiger Guild headquarters was worth. Whatever that amount was, that was what they would need to pay to recruit him. Since On Sang-min couldn't make that decision alone, Jinwoo immediately ended the discussion. Furthermore, because On Sang-min had already discovered his secret, Jinwoo did something to silence him. He also tricked him into buying access to the scheduled gate at an extremely high price. As a result, not only did On Sang-min fail to recruit him, but he was also deceived by him. When his level met the required conditions, Jinwoo received a class change quest. Unlike other quests, he was free to choose when to complete it. If his guess was correct, this was a quest where he could obtain a suitable skill, but it seemed the difficulty level would be higher than previous quests. Upon entering the gate, Jinwoo realized that he had not completed his daily quest because he had already opened the gate. He intended to do it later while inside. He could not use potions or any other healing system. The first enemy he encountered was an armor-type monster. Ordinary slashes had no effect on it, but to defeat it, he only needed to destroy its armor, just as he had done before. The continuous battles exhausted him, leaving him no time to rest as enemies kept appearing. Besides the armor-type monsters, this time he was also attacked by assassins and mages. They had troublesome abilities such as camouflage skills and light-based attack magic. Although the situation was difficult, Jinwoo had to defeat them quickly because his body was growing more fatigued. At the same time, the top-ranked hunters were preparing for a large-scale raid. They planned to enter Jeju Island and observe the strength of the enemy forces that had yet to be conquered. After defeating the enemies and preparing his equipment, Jinwoo entered the next stage. Then, upon passing through a door, he faced the knight commander named Igris. Upon seeing him, Jinwoo felt an overwhelming pressure, indicating that his opponent was incredibly strong, unlike any he had faced before. When Igris began his attack, his strikes were powerful enough to slice through pillars as if they were mere twigs. Although their speed was equal, Jinwoo had no opportunity to counterattack because his opponent possessed both destructive strength and solid defense, causing damage even through his armor. Jinwoo attempted to fight with his bare hands, but it turned out that his opponent could do the same due to his knightly honor. He willingly engaged Jinwoo in a test of pure strength. Moreover, Igris seemed to have the upper hand, making it difficult for Jinwoo as he could not match his opponent's strength. Jinwoo then fought using his speed-enhancing skill. He continued attacking repeatedly, even though his opponent could withstand every strike. Then, when Jinwoo kicked Igris in the neck, Igris became even more aggressive than before. Jinwoo was thrown and slammed to the ground relentlessly, leaving him powerless. However, just as Igris thought his opponent had given up, Jinwoo seized the opportunity to counterattack and targeted his weak spot. With that, Igris was defeated. Jinwoo received various rewards, ranging from gold to high-ranking ice items. Even though Igris had been defeated, the quest was still ongoing. This time, Jinwoo had to fight an armored army that kept emerging from all directions. Not long after, unexpectedly, Jinwoo could not use his camouflage or killing intent skills because there was a mage who could neutralize them. Feeling unable to win, Jinwoo intended to retreat using a teleportation stone. Unfortunately, he failed to use it and ended up surrounded by enemies, with his health bar critically low, making survival seem impossible. However, luck was still on his side, as he had yet to complete his daily quest today. He was forcibly transported to the penalty zone just before the enemies could finish him off. Thanks to this, Jinwoo was safe and had plenty of time in the penalty zone. He could either wait until he naturally recovered or restore his health by leveling up. Meanwhile, Jin-Ah was still waiting for her brother's return. She hoped he would come home soon because there was a scheduled meeting with her teachers the next day. After defeating the monsters in the penalty zone, Jinwoo's health was fully restored since he still had a lot of time. He took advantage of this opportunity to make many preparations. Then, after preparing stronger items and equipment, he re-entered the dungeon he had previously left. With his new weapon, Jinwoo was able to fight more efficiently, unlike when he was using his bare hands. This time, he could easily defeat his enemies with just a single slash, but no matter how many monsters he defeated, their numbers did not decrease at all. However, when he saw knights appearing through the gate, Jinwoo realized that the mages were performing summoning magic. Thus, he had to focus on the mages so that the knights would perish on their own. By defeating several mages, Jinwoo was able to move more freely and hide whenever he wanted. One by one, the mages were taken down after he discovered their many weaknesses. Fighting the golems was also not a difficult task for him. By defeating all the enemies, the class change quest was completed. Based on the points he earned, Jinwoo was qualified to obtain a new role with an even higher ranked class. But the new class he acquired turned out to be Necromancer because his stats did not align with other options. At first, he was hesitant to accept it, but since it was a hidden class, he ultimately decided to take it. Every skill from his new class turned out to be far more powerful than he had expected. Now, Jinwoo had become the Shadow Monarch, capable of resurrecting enemies as his own shadow army.